This is the Balanced Advisor Podcast with Dr. Travis Perry, helping financial advisors like you achieve balance in their lives.
All right, welcome to another episode of the Balanced Advisor Podcast. I'm joined with a very special guest and friend of mine, Mr. Reese Harper. Welcome, Reese.
Travis, what's up? Good to reconnect, man.
Absolutely. So great because we've been kind of trading spots on each other's podcasts and catching up lately. So this has been a real treat. Reese and I got started at the same time, same broker dealer, sort of, but I'll let him explain. Reese, I'd love for you to just get in and tell us, Reader's Digest version of how you got into this industry and, kind of a little timeline of what's elapsed since then.
I got into the industry from a referral from my brother-in-law who said, you know what, I think you'd be really good at giving out financial advice. And I said, well, I've never done that before. Like, how would I be good at that? And he told me to go check out this internship at Northwestern Mutual. And I think anyone who's been around the block a few times in the industry knows that the introduction into Northwestern Mutual internship is more like a recruiting ground for salespeople. But at the time, not knowing very much, I didn't know that that's what it was. And I learned a lot. And I learned a lot about, it took me about 6 months to realize that maybe the subject matter was a little narrow around insurance and I wasn't learning quite as much about investing or financial planning or the industry at large, but I did learn a lot there. And I met some really amazing people, and the culture and the values there were really what turned me on to the industry. So I have to give them a lot of credit for, even though I think their business model, unfortunately, is starting to fade right now. Like their recruiting style and their value proposition is just changing a lot, and so they're going to struggle for the next while reinventing themselves. But I love the culture there, and they really did open up my vision for how a career helping people with their money could be more like something that I was really hoping for, which was more of a counseling, therapy, coaching kind of career path where I could teach people about a subject that I loved and it would have a big impact. That was the first time I had seen that money was like America's number one stressor. I think I read from the American Psychology Association that it was by far the number one stressor over every other category. And I guess that just gave me a lot of hope that I would be doing something important that mattered. And anyone who knows me knows that's kind of what drives me the most. I'm not as driven by money as I am impact and just having an influence on somebody on an individual level. My network isn't huge, but I really do value the people in my network, like people like Travis and friends. And I think financial planning offers that kind of level of fulfillment. You have a meaningful impact on a pretty large group of people, but it's not a thin influence on a giant group of people. It's a deep influence on a pretty large group. And I love that about it. So anyway, for me, it's been just a great career. After Northwestern, I ended up having a series of steps that took me to eventually setting up my own RIA, building a niche practice in dentistry in 2010 is kind of when I really declared myself a fully focused niche advisor. And then I built that practice from 2010 to 2020. It's still running today in a successful RIA that has dentists in almost every state in the US now. Most of our clients are outside of our local market, and it's not a huge firm, but maybe we're almost at 400 million in AUM now, and about 500 households. And we're going to add about probably 150 clients this year. So it's a good size RIA. The difference between that business and maybe other RIAs is we're actually we tilt younger, we tilt accumulator. We found a way to bring subscription fees profitably into an AUM business we feel like the AUM market is still going to be there for people that have lots of money. But to sort of open up the blue ocean of people that don't have access to financial planning, subscription is kind of the way that we see advisors being able to add a new pricing model, maybe that unlocks a part of the market that doesn't have enough money to access an advisor quite yet. And that's kind of where our bread and butter has been. We're bringing on dentists that own practices all over the US, and they're usually in their 30s. And we turn those clients into really successful clients over, a 3 to 5 year period, pair them with advisors who are also trying to grow their career. It's kind of like a different version of Northwestern Mutual, that instead of having to go out and sell, we're getting younger advisors to come in who already have their CFPs, 5 years of work experience, pair them with clients, let them do planning, and focus on only one, thing, just giving great service to the client. And I think that's where a lot of the big firms will eventually get to. It's just easier for RIAs to pivot than it is for these big firms. So that's kind of how I got into the industry, and I've fallen in love with it. And today I'm actually the CEO of a software business called Elements that supports RIAs and some advisors at broker dealers. We finally just got our first compliance soft approval from LPL and also from Cambridge. So we'll be able to finally start getting into some of the larger, broker dealers that are doing planning and work with advisors who are actually interested in planning at those firms. But the software just is a passion of mine to bring better planning down market to more people, so that, instead of planning and advisors only, really being available to the uber wealthy, that we're allowing people in the middle market who aspire to really get access to a good counselor. So I'm excited about that mission, and it seems to be going good.
That's great. So many things here. I mean, again, we both started at Northwestern. You a little bit just after me, but not too much. You caught up and passed me pretty quick with production and energy and insight and foresight.
I don't remember that part. I don't remember
I do. I got a good memory, Reese. But I noticed when you went off and did your own thing, I know there was some transition period there, because I transitioned out at Northwestern at about the same time. Mm-hmm. Actually, I was following you and our friend Dave, and I know you and Dave were trying to start something, and then you broke off and did your own thing and really focused in on dentists. I have a lot of clients right now who are trying to figure out how to scale. And, the biggest thing that I find is they don't have their niche figured out. They don't have that carved. How did you decide that we're going to focus on dentists? I mean, did you just kind of hey, we're going to roll the dice and, lawyers, doctors, dentists, high income earning, why dentists? Why did you decide to go there? Obviously this podcast is all about balance, but I think this is really important to talk about this niche, because you can get way out of balance just trying to tackle and do everything for everyone. Yeah. And this is a really good comment to pick up on and kind of hone in on why you made that choice.
Well, as it relates to balance, I think that, a niche market allows you to not have to learn something new every time you have a client come on board. So that's nice. That's the most stressful part for me of financial planning, is when I get a client in a new industry or a new market with new issues that I haven't seen before. And I'm having to research something that's entirely foreign to me. I did that for the first 5 years of my career. And, that's probably the thing that drove me, the most to picking a niche market, was just it feels like I'm not being as effective as I could be, because every client interaction is different. And it's really hard to dive deep into the areas that I care about, which are the real psychological and emotional kind of life planning oriented topics that I care about, when, someone's occupation has a ton to do, if not the most to do, with how they feel about money. Yeah. Your money is independent from your job, and your job's actually the place you feel the stress. The money is, it's a part of it. It is the lack of it, or the cash flow, the imbalance in your cash flow, or the imbalance in your balance sheet, lack of liquidity, or, lack of proper cash flow. that creates additional anxiety and stress for any of us. But for a lot of us to improve that, our job's the only place we can actually, that's the only lever there is to pull. Like the levers of cash flow and the levers of asset location, you can't do a lot with those as an advisor to meaningfully change, someone's input, their income input. And so, if someone's income is fixed, and it can't go lower or higher, and you have nothing to do with that. Sometimes, unfortunately, the answer for some people has to do with their job, and whether they're in the right fit for their personality, whether, they should be an entrepreneur or not, whether they should be working for a particular employer who's, in a situation that is the right fit for them. Identifying the right skill set and fit for a particular person. I mean, I do that all the time. And I know that sounds really foreign to most advisors because it's like most people haven't worked in a niche for, 10 plus years, but like that is where the deepest pain usually lies, is like in the job oriented questions, what should I do? Sure. And who am I? What do I want to be? So for me, the balance really came, in replicating experiences, hundreds and hundreds of times. And that's when I really felt like I was adding a ton of value. And I don't know why dentist is part of your question. I think if you're picking, just the marketer in me tends to analyze the market in terms of complexity. I mean, this service isn't equally applicable to every person in the market. So let's say I'm a highly analytical software engineer that loves, self-directing everything in my life, from fixing my oil to, design. I just love the tactile nature of building woodworking and doing projects. And I love finance and I'm interested in it as a hobby. Like that customer, that software engineer that's really capable analytically and has an inclination to use his spare time and free time to focus on a hobby like money, like that. The value to that person is not the value of financial planning, of CFO services, of being a financial quarterback. It's lower to that person than it is to someone who hates money, who's intimidated by money, who's drained by money, who has no time, who is spread thin and wants to dedicate their time to other areas. I have very wealthy clients that, probably that pay me more than they would pay to Wealthfront or engaging in a direct transaction with a robo-advisor. But, they just prefer the relationship. And so dentists are on the spectrum of people I would call entreprofessionals. And an entreprofessional is someone who does a task and they love their task, they love their craft, and they're a business owner. So architects, engineers, accountants, financial advisors, even, they are entreprofessionals, right? And it's amazing how many financial advisors don't even want to do their own financial planning. They're just like, it is a process. It's a technical thing. It requires something. And they realize that they need a counselor. They need some accountability. I had a financial planner who bought Elements for me a month ago, reach out and ask if I knew a planner who worked with RIA owners and would be willing to engage their family, because he was just not feeling comfortable with his ability to do it anymore. That's the first time I actually had an inbound request for that. I'm finally in a position to get some of those from planners. But I wonder, even in the planner community, how many entreprofessionals truly want to outsource this part of their life, because it's not so much the tasks they're outsourcing as it is the emotional burden of thinking about it and staying objective. And so entreprofessionals, I think, is the category that I was like exploring the most. And I had some lawyers and I had some dentists. I had a carpet cleaning company and a couple of restaurants. I had some teachers, a couple of doctors, and I just preferred the few dentists that I were working with. They were in their mid 30s, early 30s, late 30s. And I just got along with them really well. And I just kind of went for it. I also did an analysis on the market. I looked at the size of market, and if it's a market of 5,000 people nationwide that's in your niche, I would say there's probably room for there's room for 10 of you. So, you got, if your market's like dentistry where there's 200,000, I mean, dentist advisors could keep growing at 30% a year for the next 20 years, and we'd still only be one of 30 firms that could be massive in that vertical. So you're going to see financial planning look a lot more like the medical industry over the next, 20, 30 years. It's not going to be that way in 5 years, but eventually you're not going to see general practitioners because they're not going to be able to add enough value. I mean, you're going to see the market start to fragment, and they're going to go, I want a knee specific guy. I want a shoulder doctor. I want a heart doctor, not a brain surgeon, to work on my heart. And the body and medicine has just been broken down really in a phenomenal way by the medical community. And, financial planning is still in its, third decade of evolution. And so we're just not, as a profession, quite as far along as some of the other ones.
Yeah. Oh, I really appreciate you unpacking it. I know you did an MBA. I know this is the marketing brain in you that was figuring this out, right? Am I wrong?
I did a master's in finance.
Master's in finance. Okay.
And I did a lot of marketing courses, but my master's was actually a little more technical. I just didn't want to confuse some of my friends who I was in school with if they actually listened to this. And he was no MBA.
No, that's my bad. That's my bad.
Yeah.
No, but in there, obviously you've taken marketing courses. You really care. But what I love about what you did is you took experience. You're like, hey, these are the guys I like, working with. These are the people that I connect with. I bring value here. And then you also followed up with, well, is there a market for this? And there's a market. You even talk about Blue Ocean, which is I'm actually listening to their new version of that book. Like right now, this morning, I was at the gym pumping. I listened to that, and I back in 2008 when they released their first book, I loved that idea of finding Blue Ocean. And your dentist advisors, that's who you serve. So many of those who I work with, they just really struggle. Financial advisors struggle just finding that niche. Well, I work with retirees. What? Like you and half of everybody else that I've ever met. I work with anybody that has we at Northwestern when we started, like, you have a pulse, and they actually kind of preached against having a niche. I developed one anyway, and I know you did as well, but I like it that there was a natural part of that, but there was also a very strategic approach, which you have absolutely just have killed. And I've loved watching you do this. So great job on you, man.
Yeah, I do think it was probably more just really liking the people first. And then, it wasn't like an immediate process. I should give people a warning on that. Like, it wasn't like I woke up and then did the analysis and a week later made a decision. It was like, okay, I could go down any 4 of these roads. Should it be medical and dental? Like, is dental too narrow? Should I do like professionals, and just say professionals? And it took me a while of feeling comfortable to go real narrow, and just saying dentist was even a real struggle because, I'm eliminating the orthodontists a little bit. Even though I'm not, they're going to explicitly say, well, are they dentists or orthodontists? Because the orthodontists are like, well, I'm not a dentist, I'm an orthodontist. And we struggled with are we going to get the orthos? And we don't want to lose them. So we just niche in ortho. And that was like, ortho's like a 10,000 national market.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're like, no. And so, but I struggled with that decision for probably the better part of a year to year and a half. Even after making the decision, I still struggled. And so I think people should know that I wish I would have picked my niche earlier. I wish I would have went harder, faster, sooner. I wish I wouldn't have looked back. Once you figure out your market, go for it. But, make sure you analyze your market properly. I mean, if you pick a market and that has let's say a really strong HR department nationwide, and your 90% of the questions that you answer are going to be answered by the HR department that employs, this large group, that may still be another reason not to go after that niche. So there's the size of market, there's the temperament of the person. Are they, that's entrepreneurial type, or a delegator, or a a family steward, and then there's the dimension of, are they going to be actually, are someone already giving them advice that is free to them? Right. And I think there's a lot of dimensions, and dude, picking the right niche is really hard, but once you do it, own it, go fast, go hard, and don't look back, and you'll make it. You just got to stick it out, and it's going to take a while,
Yeah. But haven't you felt that once you chose that niche, that they kind of choose you? They're like, yes, there's somebody that helps me, and they know what I do, and they like me, and they get me, right? Don't you feel that when you choose that niche?
I mean, dude, like, what's cool is I was the primary thought leader for our firm. I went through I don't know if it was 250 podcast episodes over 4+ years, of podcasting, to be kind of the primary thought leader. But it's gone way beyond me now, because the business loves the customer. The advisors love the customer. We're all in love with this market, and we're doing our best to just serve it in any way we possibly can. And that's a cool thing for me to see, that it went way past me. I'm able to step back and work on another passion project that I care about deeply. And it's been cool to see how the right selection of the customer and the right business model is sustainable beyond the founder. It really isn't about me anymore. It's about the customer, and that's cool.
That's way cool. How many advisors, I know you mentioned this earlier, but how many advisors do you guys currently have with the RIA right now?
I think we just promoted our 7th advisor.
Great.
So we have, I think there's 20 employees, roughly, and 7 would be client-facing solo advisors.
Love that. So we're going to get to your other passion project here in a minute. But listen, I know you're busy. Like you have a business. You're not a solo practitioner, which makes this even more fun of a conversation, because you've been there, you've done that. And I like the word that you're using here, entreprofessional. I always use like solopreneur, which is kind of like, the same thing, just different angle. But, that is a market that is, definitely sought after, and advisors need to be there. But a lot of advisors are there. And so, you've been there, you've done that, you've built this RIA, and you're on this other passion projects, which we'll talk in just a second. But knowing that, and our audience knowing that this is all about balance, I'd love for you to tell us in, your own words, what you define as work-life balance, or what you define as balance in your own life. What does that look like for you, Reese?
Well, I don't think, I want to say that this has been a huge struggle for me during my career. I hope as I explain what it means to me, that people realize I've been through a lot of pain around this topic, and it's been a big struggle. Anytime you try to add things to your plate, your life goes through a shift, and it's not easy to balance things. When I look at, people like, we'll just say the president of the United States, for example, I'm like that, like the amount of pain, pressure, like stress that person's under every day, with new things that come onto their plate every day. I really respect how much pressure some people go into are under at all times. Or you look at someone like a Steve Jobs, or I see people that are under a lot more pressure than me. And I always look at my life and go, well, geez, mine's not as hard as theirs. So I should be able to make this work. But I constantly find myself feeling, broken, and feeling like I'm only halfway what I should be, and that my kids aren't seeing enough of me, that I'm not as present as I would like to be in all my activities. Those are things that I will say just are a constant battle for me. How I've learned to create balance, if I have at all, is I've established a pretty regular routine around exercise that's been really critical to me. I had to really learn this the hard way. I didn't really like exercising every day. I A personal trainer I work out with. I'm not rich enough to be able to afford this without pain. Okay. But this is something I prioritize so much that I'm not willing to let my exercise like fall to the wayside. And I know if it's just up to me, like I won't show up on the 3 times a week I need to be doing weight training. Like I won't do that. I won't do it. I'll ride my bike, I'll do cardio, and I'll have fun in the trees and the mountains, and I'll ski and I'll play every day if I need to. But I need to weight train in order to like really get my body in the place where it needs to be. And so I hired a trainer to help me with that, and it's been years of doing that. So my exercise routine is daily, but my weight training is 3 days a week, and then my cardio's 2 days a week. And on Saturdays and Sundays, I usually go on hikes and hit the mountains. I'm usually trying to do something every day. And that's been something that's been really critical to me. I will try to take one of my kids with me, or, try to dual purpose my workouts outside of the weight training when I can. And that's been a critical component. I believe in biology. My wife's a health and wellness major, and she's a nutritionist, kind of, I shouldn't say formally, but she is into nutrition, and she works at a holistic healing office. And she's been kind of the reason I've been able to learn anything about health. And so I value, that input. But for me, like, that's a way I obtain balance. I probably should define balance for me is, can I always be present in every activity that I'm engaged in? If I'm doing a podcast recording like this, is my mind all here? If I'm taking my kid to lunch, is my mind all there? I don't view balance in terms of lack of work or lack of tasks or lack of activity. I think work in the Hebrew, original Hebrew definition of work, there's multiple kind of definitions, and one of them is worship, and one of them is servitude. And, work can be whatever you want it to be, depending on how present you are in the activity and how much you enjoy it. If work is something you're doing to get done with, to move on to something you can finally be present in, then work feels like servitude. If work is something that you can be present in and you can enjoy it in that moment, then I really feel like work can be worship. Work can be awesome. Work can be a pleasure to do every day. Even in my job, as much as I love it, work is never always worship, and it's never always servitude. It depends on how present I am. And so for me, I'm a big fan of Eastern philosophy. I read a lot of, I read a lot of secular Buddhist and traditional standard Buddhism, writings. I'm kind of a contemplative Christian guy that has grown up in a Christian tradition that I really value. And so theology is a big part of this for me. I spend time meditating every day, at least 15 minutes. I do read a lot, and I write a lot. So between reading and writing and meditation, at least 30 minutes a day, I'm able to make sure I remind myself of how important it is to be present and kind of hit the next day with, the right attitude. The other thing that I really try to avoid doing is working too many hours. So there's a point where, regardless of how prepared I am, how well fed I am, my nutrition, my exercise, and my, mental preparedness, I can't push back past a certain volume of hours before I start cracking. And I don't know, every day is a little different. I won't say that's 8 hours for me, because it hasn't really been that consistent. There's days where luckily I'm able to kind of work a 5 or 6 hour day and get caught up. And there's days where I'm working a solid 12 and I make it all the way through. And there's days where I work a 16-hour day and I crash hard, I don't like it when I do that. I'm not trying to do that, but it's kind of the nature of taking on, it's kind of the nature of lifting more weight. If you want to lift more weight, you're going to be sore, and you're probably going to be in pain, and it's not fun. And so eventually once you can bench an extra 5 or 10 pounds than used to be able to bench, it's not as hard. And you get to these new plateaus and you get to a place where you're comfortable. And if you've ever weight trained, there's probably a limit to where you're not going to keep progressing your volume. Like, you're not going to get to most of us, like me, at least, I will progress to a certain point, and then, it's going to be hard for me to keep lifting more. And if I try, I might get injured. And I think that's not unlike our careers. Like, each of us has a capacity where we'll start to feel that we're getting injured. And I'm in that spot in my career right now where I kind of know what my limits are in a software startup. Like, I'm the CEO, but I also know I need a really strong COO right next to me. And that person has to have a meaningful amount of equity. And I have to have less as a consequence of that. Because if I want more equity, that's going to come with more pain, but I'm not suited for that pain, and I can't push as hard. When I can't push that hard without breaking, and I know myself. And so I have to kind of have a team that I balance my, self with. And so that's kind of another dimension, I think. So a lot of people, for every person, whether you're a solopreneur that just wants a lifestyle practice with just you and a computer and just your clients, you'll find the same pain that I'm finding right now as I'm like building my, essentially third business, and I'm getting crushed. And we have the same challenge, which is, can we both be present? Can we both be in the moment? Can we both enjoy our day? And it's not easier for me or for the solopreneur to do that. That's been my experience. I had just the same pain when I was just a solopreneur with no staff that I do right now. I actually don't, it's still hauntingly familiar, the same feelings that are there. They're different now.
They're just different. Yeah.
Yeah. But it doesn't get easier, and I'm not better than I was in terms of my ability I'm more aware. I have more awareness of how to be balanced, but I still, because the pain, the volume of things I'm dealing with is more than I used to, I'm now struggling in the same way I was when I was trying to figure out how to run payroll for the first time, so it's just a different, I wouldn't even say that the feeling and the pain is the same. It's the same pain. It's anxiety about the future. It's regret of the past. Those are the opposite of being present. And being present is, not having anxiety of the future or regret about your past. It's just being and accepting like your life as like a beautiful thing and just enjoying every step. But that is so hard to do. It is so hard to do. And so I'm just a part of many people that are trying to get through that journey. And some people do have an easier time dealing with it than others. And some people like me, I struggle with mental health and I struggle with anxiety and I struggle with depression. And so for me, it's really a challenging thing that I have to be particularly careful about all of my choices in order to not, be in a state where I'm unhappy, frustrated, regretting, or highly anxious. And so I've never chosen to formally medicate my mental health, but I have chosen to treat it in a lot of different ways and in it as naturally as I can. And it's been manageable, but like I wake up every morning with a fresh bout of stress that I am not going to be able to pull off what I need to that day. And so it's something that I think it's good to share that, because a lot of people probably look at, even if there's only a handful of people that actually get through this part of the podcast, there's probably one or two people that really struggle with comparison or having anxiety about the future, feeling like they're inadequate, that they're not going to make it, that they can't succeed. And, some people that look really successful really struggled to get there. And without good support groups and without like a lot of counseling and coaching and people like Trav to kind of lean on, a lot of people aren't going to feel like they can get through it. And so I like to be as transparent as I can with talking about that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I mean, you tackled the first couple of questions. You just rolled right into it. Like, here's your definition of balance, and you gave us examples. Like keeping that physical health, even that mental health in check, and be able to do those things that are super important to you. And I love the analogy of working out and having capacity. Like you talked about capacity. Is this 8 hours? Is this 16 hours? And there are times where you've got to put in those 16 hours, but yet those struggles. Those are the things that have kept you, the stress of just waking up thinking, gee, this is what I've got to tackle today. I know so many advisors that resonates, Reese. So I really appreciate you opening up and being able to share that and being vulnerable here on the podcast. I appreciate that as a friend, but I appreciate that you sharing that with the audience. You know this industry well. You work with a lot of advisors, you hire advisors. And, with your company, with Elements, you're working more with dozens more, hundreds more, thousands more advisors. Your reach is great here. What do you think, in your experience, now being an advisor to advisors per se, what would you say are some of the main issues that other advisors face in the industry when it comes to achieving balance? Maybe the top 1, 2, 3 ideas that come to your mind. What are some of those things that you think that they struggle with just in general?
I think relationship balance is really tough for them. I think, we all have an inherent desire to want to have some kind of like partnership in life. It could be a marriage, could be any kind of like life partner or close friendships. If you're choosing, to be single, like you still like people really need human connection. And I think it's hard for advisors to maintain those relationships. It's really challenging. And I think it's this entre-professional concept we talked about at the beginning. It's hard when some of these industries are like, they put a lot of pressure on the professional, and finance and dentistry are actually some of the more highly, like there's a lot of suicide in like a lot of depression in these industries. And I think a lot of it just has to do with the subject matter in finance. You're dealing with like the most stressful topic for people. And it can be something that, we don't have like the compensation range in the industry is quite varied. Like you can't get out and get a $150,000 job just anywhere. As a financial advisor, it's a little challenging. You have to like produce and be a certain type of person that still does a little bit of sales. And so, I don't know, the relationships seem to be challenging because we're trying to build a business and we're trying to like be a professional and give advice and be this like clinician, essentially. It's just a complicated career for a lot of these advisors. So I'd say relationships are probably the one I see they struggle with the most. The other balance is like within the practice itself, like trying to determine what tasks and roles they're going to play, what role they're going to actually fill. Are they going to fill the role of a clinician and kind of subject matter expert? Are they going to fill the role of marketer? Are they going to fill the role of team lead and manager and delegator? Like these are very different career paths. Like it's very different to be an operator of a business than it is to be a content creator or a thought leader. It's very different to be a salesperson than it is to be a marketer. Like a marketer is not a salesperson, but sales is its own skill. It requires like human connection and intimacy and like resilience and like high volumes of activity. And marketing requires an understanding of how to read a customer and ask really good questions and kind of be thoughtful about strategy. And I think advisors really struggle to balance like what they're gonna focus on, like, and what they're gonna be. There's just 5 different things to choose from, and we don't get a lot of training in school or afterwards on what our strengths are. And so it takes people quite a while to know, like, what are my strengths? And I feel like we do ourselves a disservice, only having like one career placement class in college where, if that, and we don't really get to know us. We just get to know like about all the jobs that are out there that maybe we might be a fit for. But I feel like, for as much time as we spend on geometry and trig and, all these topics that are kind of highly applicable to just reasoning skills and analytical skills, and they're not even practical skills, but they do strain your brain, and I think that's good. but like we don't know ourselves that well. Like I didn't know that I was better at certain things than others until I was 10 years into my career and failed at a bunch of different things. And I think we can do a better job of helping people like know where they match up. So that's where I feel like people struggle to find balance. Those are a couple that are like top of mind: relationships, and then the what do I do? What do I focus on? Maybe the last one is just the financial balance is tough, and advisors generally having to sacrifice their current liquidity and go backwards in order to pursue a career in planning that maybe one day will pay off. I mean, that just, there's not a lot of industries that are like that, where, most industries you can survive on like a decent salary. I know there are salary jobs, like dentist advisors is hiring people on salary, but like I said, I got 7-8 advisors. Like we are one of very few firms that you could actually go work for. And so we have like 1,000 applications for one job, because we're the one writing the check. And why did that happen? Well, only really because I was taking like extraordinary amounts of stress and pressure and risk on myself to create that. Over the next 10 or 20 years, we'll see the industry mature and there'll be more jobs. But right now, the financial balance is like tough to achieve. You're taking a lot of risk to go into this career financially. And I think that is not very persuasive. So that's kind of where I'm interested. My product kind of is trying to help solve this problem, both in how we bill and how we price our product, and the type of things that it does are geared towards trying to solve some of this problem of how can we get more young people doing planning in a profitable way, and how can we get more customers engaged in planning in a profitable way. So that's kind of where my heart's at right now.
I love that. And we're going to get to that too, because I really want to hear more about this. But you bring us some really good points. Relationship balance, super tough. And in my book, Achieving Balance, I bring this up. Like, this is a big part of it. And like, there's a big part of those who actually get this part figured out, come to find it. That is their strength. Their strength is their marital partner. It is their relationships. It's their family, these connections that we have that help us in large part, those who really support us to continue, but also help us to bring balance. And you brought this up before I even asked this, Reese. You brought up earlier that, your wife, she works at a holistic healing place, and she's helped you, more with the Eastern way of thinking, which has brought you greater balance, right? More meditation, more thought provoking. And I think that was interesting. I just point that out that yes, you identify with that and you understand, but then you also realize that your wife has helped you with that. So many advisors, I've interviewed over 200 or so advisors at this point. So many advisors say the exact same thing. I've had one who came out and said, my wife is my balance. It's like, if it wasn't for her, I would be a mess, because she makes sure I get home, I'm with the kids. And I'm not saying that's it for everyone, but it's this reoccurring theme that keeps happening. And one of the reasons why, I chose to get a PhD in family relations is really kind of understand that area. You also mentioned, the different roles. You're right. When you're starting off as a solopreneur, as a financial advisor, and you hang your own shingle, which we've both done, it's like, you've got to be all things and you've got to figure all this out. It's that E-myth, right? Which one do you take and how fast can you scale and build so you can just do the things that you're good at? I did take a college placement test, but then I went in and I took a personality and how that fits up with my, skills and abilities. And this is huge. It's called the Campbell Interest and Skills Survey. I think everyone should take this. I recommend this to everyone I can think of. Like, it's old, but it's good. Like, it's really good. It makes you take questions from different angles, and then it takes what you think your skills are and what you think your abilities are, and it matches you up with all of these different professionals and how they scored. So very intuitive, because it looks at what their average scores are and compares yours and says, you ought to explore this one. You ought to really go after this one, and you ought to stay away from these. And, so I agree with you, like, having more of that, having more career counseling, guidance, coaching, right? Coaching. is huge. And I've seen actually, and I'm to that point, I have seen every time I've toured campuses now with my kids who are at that age group. Now I'm touring campuses. I'm seeing it all over the place in their career advisement areas of, hey, come get some career coaching. And I think this has become a thing where for you and I, 15, 20 years ago, like that wasn't a thing. And it is getting up there, but and touche, that's kind of why I'm here and helping advisors trying to figure out what to do. But this last one really strikes me because this hits at my heart, man. This hits at my heart, the financial balance. Going into this business, knowing of all the risk that you're taking, like it attracts really good, understanding of the industry, individuals, people who've got, great knowledge, but have to be good people on top of that in order to start and sustain this growth. They've got their risk tolerance is quite high, right? If we looked at advisors as investors into this industry, like we're a little bit on the high side. So that is definitely where I think we can talk about now is what you're doing. What are you doing with elements? Because you first kind of gave us this intro of, I want to help, those who maybe aren't high assets, but on subscription model, which is brilliant. It's what so many really good advisors and, brokers are doing right now to tackle this market and help where help is needed. But you also talk to the advisors, you speak to the advisors of those coming in, and you're seeing this change. So talk to us about elements, talk to us about this software company that you're doing, how that can help advisors give them greater sense of balance.
Well, I think that the value proposition of the industry has shifted so much over the last 30 years. In the last 5 years, it's shifted a ton. We really used to be product intermediaries, especially, even the good ones were investment brokers or intermediaries to like distribute funds. And all the software and all the technology that advisors pay for right now is largely focused on that value proposition, right? Like the investment value proposition. So how to you would see rebalancing software and trading software and performance reporting software, and you see a lot of risk software and asset allocation modeling, and there's a ton of investment related stuff. And now with technology kind of like coming out like that commoditizes a lot of that stuff, the value proposition for the advisor has shifted a lot from like, I give you product to, or I'm in charge of investing to, I do planning, right? I do coaching, I do planning, I do advice, right? And that part is rising. So the value proposition of the industry is I'm going to be your counselor. I'm going to be your personal CFO. I'm going to be your holistic financial planner. I'm going to be your big picture. Even if you're not going to be everything, you're still going to even if you're still going to manage money, you're going to emphasize your process, your plan, your philosophy, your method, your niche, right? Whatever you want to go after. It's just investment value propositions declining, planning value propositions increasing. If you look at the software market in the wealth management industry, though, like we're paying like $50 a month for financial planning software. We're paying like thousands of dollars, towards investment management software, and we're spending hundreds on financial planning software. And what you're going to see, I think, is companies are going to start coming out of the woodworks. There's already, I'm speaking here in an hour at a financial planning advice conference, and there's 10 new products that are like all advice related now, planning related. And, it's a very different like future. What I wanted to do with elements was, so that's just the context. So I'm just setting the stage for, there's a lot more than me out there that I've seen coming. I just want advisors to be thinking about, where do you put your money right now? What value proposition are you building in your firm in a world where the value of investment management delivery is going to be compressed. I'm not going to say it's going to go away. Clearly, the robo push has shown that, and Robinhood's track record of getting people to invest properly hasn't been real great. And so I think that advisors are going to see that people still want them to manage the money, but they're also going to say, if you want to charge a premium fee, if you want to be a premium advisor in terms of how you get compensated, at Dentist Advisors, we charge 1.5% on the first million and $295 a month for small clients and $795 a month for large clients. As they get bigger in terms of their AUM, the monthly planning fee does decline. But we charge, we're a premium fee. How do we justify that? How are we getting that in the market? Why are we going to bring on hundreds of clients this year? Well, it's because the value proposition is really strong around planning, right? We know their industry. We have a process. We have a system. We have very detailed objectives. And so what I tried to do is I just tried to take what we did at Dentist Advisors and then make that available to other advisors to use in their own practices. Elements differs from other financial planning software in that it is really, I would say traditional financial planning software is focused on a Monte Carlo simulation of detailed cash flows of the future, where we're really, and some other pieces of software are focused on goal achievement, like how much do you need to save to get to this outcome. Our software is really focused on the behavioral components that drive clients to positive outcomes. So we would say, an element, like one element would be someone's savings rate. So I'm less concerned about whether they're saving enough to meet their goals, and I'm less concerned about whether they're saving enough to retire on time. I'm actually interested in, are they saving enough for the level of income that they have in order for their savings rate to be healthy? And so that's the question I'm asking is, what is a healthy savings rate for someone at 100,000? What's a healthy savings rate for someone at 125, at 150, at 200? Regardless of what, like, let's say they have no goals and they've got no desire to retire. Someone just wants to consume everything. We all know that's not healthy. Maybe we'd all say, you should save something. Even if you have no goals, you should save something. Well, what if somebody says, well, to reach my retirement goal, I only have to save 9.4%. Well, I mean, is that good? And I don't know. What if like they're like just wasting like 13% of their gross income, like just frivolously? Like, is that good? Like, what if they just like have a habit of like always cycling through cars every like 2 years because they can? Like, as advisors, should we be like, that's fine, that's your preference? Or should we be like, hey, for a savings rate, like at your income level, 21% is your peer group average and seems to be healthy. There's like 400 samples that I'm looking at here of data, and like your savings rate is 14% lower than your peer group. Like, we got to talk about this. Like, something's going on that I think we should explore, because at some point down the road, there's going to be a cost to you of that we might not be able to see. Now, if they're putting it towards kids' college, or if they're putting it towards their retirement, or if they're saving it up and paying off their house faster, I really don't care. I just want to know that they have this like amount of savings that they are actually able to self-direct and control, that it's not being consumed obligatorily by debt, taxes, or spending. And so our software, that's just one topic of like 15 that we have a philosophy around and a benchmark around and a score range around. And we're not trying to say all clients have to be at a certain rate to be healthy. We're just saying, as an advisor, we shouldn't be so loose about our planning if planning really matters. We should be more precise about it. And if someone says they have a plan, I'd like to examine that plan. I'd like to say, what savings rate is this client going to be, putting away? What is their burn rate? What is their effective tax rate? And what's their debt to income ratio? That's a cash flow set of metrics that I would like to examine. And then we can all discuss collectively as an industry whether that plan is appropriate for this person's given level of income and assets. And I just don't think it should be so subjective. Like if you exercise isn't super subjective, and wellness isn't super subjective, and medicine's not super subjective. Why is planning so subjective? I mean, retiring shouldn't be like the main thing for an accumulator to focus on. If I'm like 2 years out from retirement, candidly, like my software is not targeting that part of the market right now. Like I'm trying to like target the part of the market that's trying to figure out whether they're okay and headed in the right direction and making positive change. And so we do a lot of that. And the way we price our system is price it on a per client basis. It's very deep, has a really great mobile experience, a lot of reporting, and a lot of philosophy and training built into it. But we just price it on a per client basis. We just say, okay, if you've got one client, you're just going to go with one client with me. That's going to cost you $30 a month. I'm going to put one client on there, but you're going to have to, you're going to probably charge this client $100 a month or $150 a month. And I'm going to make it to where you don't have to have an assistant, to help you with this, because the app is going to reach out to the client for data. It's going to collect information. It's going to collect documents. It's going to collect accounts, connect accounts, and make it possible for you to not have to do a bunch of paperwork. And it's all going to be a digital experience. So there won't be, paper pushed around. Now, if you want PDFs, you can generate them, and you want to deliver physical reports, that's totally on you. And some advisors are totally going to do that. And that's just the way they want their paper reports. I'm not going to take it away from them, but I've created a system that's so lean, so lightweight, and so nimble. You can literally do planning for someone at a lower income level at a low cost and make it be sustainable. And you don't have to manage their money to make that happen. Now, if you do end up managing their money, you can discount their fee, or you can charge less, or you can charge more. But like what I'm trying to do is create a pricing model that lets someone out of college, or, an advisor that's starting out at a firm or a big firm that has a lot of AUM business, and they want to get down market and they want to stop saying no to people, trying to create a way that they can say yes and scale it. Because right now, big firms are saying, you got to have a minimum to work with us. And then the client, even if the client's like, well, they're not even asking the client if they would be willing to pay for service. They're just saying, do you have enough assets for us to manage? No. Okay, go away. And it's like, man, what if we just said it's like $195 a month? Or what if we just said it's $2,000 a year or $5,000 a year? Would some people be willing to pay until they have assets? And once they have assets, then you can stop billing them. Like you could do that too, instead of just turning people away. I just think like our industry is only servicing like the top, 9 million households in the country, really, and maybe 10 million, and then the other 100 million households, 110 million households in the country, they just don't get any access. And it's partially because our technology was built to deliver one-time plans and Monte Carlo simulations for people with lots of money. And it wasn't built to do granular like planning for people who are in the accumulation stage of their life. And I think that we can, that's where we're seeing our growth come from. So.
Yeah, this is a fascinating conversation, because this is also something, really important to grab onto. You gravitated to the software application, and I went to financial coaching to try to like, okay, I'm going to be that guy. I'm going to go help people accumulate, and build, because I saw the same problem as an advisor of, here's your one-time plan. I'm going to show it to you. You're going to put it on the shelf. It's going to gather dust, and, we'll review a couple times a year and see where we're at. But, having this living, breathing software to be able to, have advisors come around who want to provide that planning. I'm not going to say should, but, if we really got deep into the fiduciary responsibility, would a doctor be able to turn someone away who came into the emergency room? no, like it's illegal to turn people away. There's all sorts of issues here, but you're the one that mentioned it earlier. Like the financial planning model is going to go more medical. I'm going, yeah, but maybe. But I think you're on to something here of what's our duty, what's our responsibility to those in this accumulation phase. Is there any, that's a whole ethical discussion probably for another day, but it does beg that question, and it makes me really excited about what you're doing, because what you're doing is you're giving ways for advisors to build their business, help these people also have benefit and income that's coming in before the great asset, distribution or protection plan is needed to get to that next generation, or retirement is coming. So I love what you're doing, Reese. You're fantastic. You are, you're one of these leaders in the community that really need your voice to be heard. And I'm glad that you're getting on this conference soon so you can share more about it. So I appreciate the time you spent today. If people, advisors want to get after it, if they want to get elements, what do they need to do?
Just go to getelements.com and book a demo. You'll probably get booked with me because I'm taking all the sales calls for the first few hundred firms that we sign on. So
nice.
You go to getelements.com and you can just pick a demo time on there, and you'll get to put the software on your device and computer, see reporting, and just 30 minutes I can get you through everything and let you look at it. I'm just excited to see what the financial coaching industry is actually latched onto this as well. We have several coaches that are part of the AFCPE that are customers, and I'm actually presenting at their event here as an exhibitor in November. I think the coaching industry doesn't quite have the level of sophistication that some of the advisory industry does around investment conversations, but they sure have a lot of heart, some of the heart and passion that's more planning aligned than the majority of, I'd say, the advisory industry. I kind of think that these two worlds are not going to be that, if regulation wasn't keeping them apart, they wouldn't be apart. It just regulations kind of keeping them apart. But I've been fascinated how many coaches have been reaching out to us going, this is perfect. Like coaches from South Africa, from Australia, from other countries going, I don't care that it's, in US currency. I need this and I want to use it.
Wow. That's exceptional.
Yeah. Anyway,
but you're hitting on something here, man. You struck a vein, and what you're doing is, maybe you're part of helping these two parts of the industry get together. Maybe there's a marriage here that needs to happen, because I do think so. And I know Kit just agrees with me. And I know there's a lot of others who are after this. And someone who's tried to build his own RIA once, with planning and coaching as kind of a stair step. I know it should be part of the equation, to use your math analogy of the trigonometry and everything. I think this is, we got basic algebra is this financial coaching piece, but a lot of advisors love trigonometry because of the complexity. But you're right. It's that heart of those who really want and teach to grow the wealth, need support with what you're doing. So I appreciate it. Thanks for being on the show. Your time is valuable, guys. I've done the demo. Reese showed me the software. It's fantastic. I can't, agree with more with what you're doing, Reese, and the software is exciting. I hope and wish you the well with this. Stay in touch, and everybody, thanks for listening. Another episode of the Balanced Advisor podcast. Until next time. Thanks, Reese.
Thanks, Trav.